I'm interested in your opinions on how an INFJ, social sexual, 9 wing 1 countertype. There we get all that? Yeah. INFJ, social sexual, 9 wing 1 countertype. Mother of a child with special needs can get out of the vacillating traps of 9 inertia toward motherhood. The extroverted sensing, extroverted feeling loop. An INFJ sanity keeping, pulling away into introversion mode, introverted intuition, introverted thinking loop, and gain momentum toward focusing on her own agendas in terms of life's work, purpose, passions, projects, etc., apart from children and family. You want to summarize how you understood that question?
Okay, so I'm hearing it. How would these two models recommend this INFJ social 9?
Yeah.
With a child who is a mother with a child who has special needs.
Correct.
Get out of her trap of the 9 inertia problem. So I'm not sure what the 9 inertia challenge is. Traps of 9 inertia towards motherhood. I don't know what the 9 inertia towards motherhood would be for a 9. That would
maybe it's like focusing too much on the role, being the role of mother, or focusing on the children and the family, and not focusing enough on herself.
Okay, and gain momentum towards focusing on her own agenda in terms of life's work, purpose, etc. So that's your side of it. And then my side of it is, how does an INFJ get out of over-mothering and wanting to just then retreat into her own introverted loop, and apply her energy towards working for her own, getting her own needs met and her own agenda.
I'm going to pick on you, Victoria. Ask simpler questions.
Yes, it's very complicated. All right, so I'm going to let you take yours. Do you want to take yours first?
Victoria just answered yes.
Okay,
so you basically summarized that correctly. All right.
So sure, yeah, I mean, I'll just say, I think that she needs to have more time alone, and I know that might be hard with a child and a special needs child, but whatever it takes to get, maybe the partner to take over some of the time. So having more time on her own to kind of focus on herself will be good. I also think getting in touch with any sadness associated with maybe feeling constrained by the mother role, or working really hard to support the family and not having enough time for herself, or not feeling a sense of belonging in the world. That's going to be a good thing, to get in touch with her feelings around her situation and not being in touch with herself. And I also think, you kind of, I almost feel like she kind of knows this already in the way she asked the question, recognizing that it's really important not to over-identify with the role of mother, or the role of, the person who works really hard to support the family, and at the expense of focusing on herself. And so it could be, creating routines where she has time on her own, or she does certain things by herself, or she focuses on certain priorities, and almost having people who hold her accountable, because I know the 9 inertia can be hard, but having certain things that she commits to doing, have people support her and hold her accountable, and just like really making, like maybe she has a night a week or a couple of days a week where she really gets some time by herself to focus on what she wants to focus on, and have put more center of gravity on her own sense of purpose.
So social 9s, one of the ways that sloth shows up for them is sloth towards really having like a personal preference, right? Having like knowing what one's like doing the work of going inside and knowing what your preferences and what your desires are. Is that accurate?
Sure. Yeah. It's hard to access your own priorities and then act on behalf of your own priority.
So one of the challenges that INFJs can have is that they can lose themselves in their identity in other people. And I would imagine that a 9 would also have this challenge. Yeah. So one of the things that, I have a very good friend who's a sociology professor that talked about the challenge of role-person merger, which is that you see this in, like professors a lot, is that their professorhood is their role, and their identity merges with the role. and they no longer see themselves as having an identity outside of the role. It's called role person merger. And that's kind of what it sounds like right now, this idea of like, as a 9, it's so easy to sort of lose yourself. As an INFJ, it's easy to lose yourself into another person. And I would imagine it would be easy to lose yourself to a role. And so doing the work of separating yourself out from that role, not having role person merger, but actually separating yourself out from the role of being a mother. And then the hard work you're going to have to do, and this is actually your INFJ work too. I wouldn't necessarily go to get into action. Social 9s are hard workers, right? Once they know what they want, right? Sometimes they get
whether they know what they want or not, and usually not, they are hard workers.
Yeah. So the question isn't like, how do you make your dreams come true in whatever it is that you want to do, right? Because you're a hard worker. I'm assuming that as a social 9 that you're a hard worker, and a lot of INFJs are quite hard worker. They're very responsive. They've got more energy than their INTJ counterparts usually, because they have that responsive piece of them that will get into action. And so with extroverted feelings. So to me, what it kind of sounds like, and this is why I would piggyback on what Beatrice was saying, which is time. The time is not just for self-care, because that's usually what we say. INFJs, make sure you have time for self-care. But that extroverted feeling or harmony function, that's all about getting needs met. You've got to go inside and figure out, like, do the hard work of figuring out what your specific needs are. Do the work of what it is that you want. How do you want to impact the world? How do you want to affect it? Now, if you've already done that work, if you've already gone into and you know what it is you want, but you're just trying to take the trajectory away from 100% focusing on your kid and then do a little bit of work, like for yourself, then that's a role person merger issue. And I would probably look up that phrase, role person merger, and take some suggestions on how to stop conflating those two things. But this idea of taking the time to know exactly what it is you want, and then building a system. Because the thing is, we talk about extroverted thinking as being systems builders, but extroverted feeling are also systems builders. They just build systems of people. They build networks of people, and they build systems around getting people's needs met. And that includes yourself. So use your extroverted feeling to first know what your needs are, know what your desires are, know what your wants are. Recognize that you are also a person who needs to get your needs met, and then build a network or a system around you to facilitate those needs. And that includes of yourself. And then do maybe a little bit of work around separating out your identity from that role. So without knowing more specifics, it might be hard to do a better diagnostic than that. But that would be my recommendation as an INFJ.
So let's stick with, by the way, Beatrice, do you want to say anything else?
Just one last thing
Sure.
is sometimes it's really interesting to look at the repressed instinct. And in her case, she's social sexual. So self-preservation is repressed. So that may be another factor of her not taking, like, self-preservation 9s are the ones that like to be by themselves. They're a little bit more like going and doing their own thing. And also they repressed people tend to put themselves in danger, which could even take the form of doing too much for other people and not taking care of what you really need and not taking the time to figure out what you want. Can I say a little bit of something about Enneagram Roadmap and how I think it's the perfect accompaniment to what I spend a lot of my time doing live? My business partner and I offer live inner work retreats. We offer them mostly in San Francisco, London, Cairo in Egypt, Sao Paulo, Brazil, and coming soon, China. And in those inner work retreats, we do deep work with the Enneagram. But we don't really teach the basics. We kind of get right into the deeper work. So Enneagram Roadmap is like the perfect thing to do if you're wanting to do some deep work as a prelude to kind of doing one of our inner work retreats, or even doing one of our professional workshops where we help practitioners learn to use the Enneagram in a deep and accurate way. So we'd love to see you at one of our 5-day programs, but Enneagram Roadmap is really a good thing to do first to kind of, first of all, just, enter into the Enneagram, I think, in a deep way, and how it can be used as a growth tool and what the system is all about. But also as an introductory workshop you can do in the comfort of your own home before you come and do something deeper with us, which we'd love to have you do.
Well, and to piggyback on that, Joel was mentioning when we flew Beatrice out again, when we were in Florida to record more content. As you mentioned, we've been listening to that all day long because we've been doing some editing on it. And I had forgotten how good those conversations were, because we were talking about things that we were talking about instinctual stacks. So, people have been talking, I'm a self-pres sexual, or I'm a social, sexual, or whatever, self-pres. And then you just kind of hinted. And then we have the ones that's repressed, right? And in the Enneagram roadmap, the content that we were creating, you mentioned how it was like a beach ball underneath water, that we do an elaborate balancing act to try to repress it and push it down so we don't have to see it. And so we talked about those things about stacks and what it looks like to have each of those instincts, what it looks like when one of those is your repressed beach ball underneath the water, and what it means to have one that's dominant. And it was
when it explodes.
When it explodes, yeah, because that beach ball will come up sometimes and surface, and what it looks like when your repressed instinct explodes. I mean, it's such good stuff. So that's now in the Enneagram roadmap, or those are being uploaded right now, and it's just really amazing content. So I also would like to put my hat in the ring of recommending that right now, because we're releasing Enneagram roadmap right now. It's a really good time to go check out that program. So